Okay, we're on TikTok and we are live on YouTube. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Rick Talks 2, episode 2. I am being joined by Linda from the Foundation Bark, which is a Bali-based foundation for Bali dogs. I'm very excited to speak to Linda to learn all about the foundation and her journey that she has taken to, I guess, establish this foundation and what's taken her to Bali and learn everything. So welcome, Linda. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you? It's cold over here.
I'm very good. Where are you located right now?
I just got back from Bali yesterday. So I'm Murray River in Victoria.
Wonderful. And how long were you in Bali?
25 years.
Oh, is this your first time back in 25 years?
No, I come back occasionally, but I came back last year for an operation. I had to get a new knee, and my sister paid for it, so it was nicer to have someone, looking after you in Australia, that I can come back and get free operations, my rich sister.
You can't find a knee down Jalan Padmara in Legian or anything?
No,
down one of those
unfortunately. No. The only knee joints I could find were ones been chewed off by doggies.
So look, let's just start at the start. What originally took you to Bali, and how long ago was it?
Do you know what? If you really want to know, it's a pretty gory story, really. Because I came from a pretty sort of rough background and pretty upset sort of family life, and I became a full-on drinker and smoking dope every day, etc. And I had to get away from Australia. I'd made so many bugger ups in my life, and I'd gone to school and become an acupuncturist, and I painted every day from when I was about 15 and had exhibitions and painted murals and everything around Melbourne. But the alcohol got to me, and I couldn't really stop. And I did a geographic. I wanted to get away from Australia, so I bought a ticket to Bali, to Thailand, and back to Bali in Australia. And when I was in Thailand, I met a couple that were talking about how they don't drink anymore. And I was like, how do you do that? How do you not drink? I mean, I have to drink every day, and all my friends are alcoholics and so on. And they explained to me that I could go to a 12-step program and I could get myself sober. So finally, there was a lot of stories between doing the geographic and getting to Bali and stopping drinking. I mean, I got a really good reputation on Monkey Forest Road, raging up and down there on my motorbike and carrying on. But I finally went to a 12-step meeting, and that was 26 years ago. So how I got to Bali was by doing a geographic to run away from myself, basically. That's what the story was.
That's funny. It seems like you ran away from yourself, but really you found yourself over on the island. Would that be fair to say?
Well, I had actually been to Bali like once before and never ever wanted to go to Bali, but a friend of mine conned me into it because she said that, and I had this whole mitt full of money. I'd sold a house and I had like 25 grand or something. And I said to my girlfriend, come on, let's go holidaying, we'll go somewhere really nice. And she said, well, I want to go to Bali. And I said, well, I heard the place is awful and I don't want to go there. And I said, let's go to Queensland. And she said, no, my son wants to go to Bali. So I said, all right, then we'll go to bloody Bali, So, I mean, that was 1986. So I went to Bali but before we left to go to Bali, she said, I'm not going now. I've changed my mind. So I had to find another girlfriend to go with me. And I took my son. And on the plane, I met a girl who said, go to Ubud. She said, it's fantastic, lovely. It's a beautiful little place. Well, it was. It was just dirt roads. There was plenty of arak, which is a really strong alcoholic drink, which I loved, and got sloshed every night when I was there. Had a nice big motorbike I hired. But I couldn't drive bikes. But I went down the beach this day and I had a hangover down in Kuta. And I was sitting on the beach and there was this Indonesian bloke teaching somebody how to ride a trail bike. And I thought, that looks all right. I think I'll have a go at that. So I said to him, come over, go. And he said, yeah, come on then. he put me on. And I drove up and down the beach a couple of times. The chain came off, and then we put it back on again. And then I kept riding around. And he was like, keep going, keep going. So I went back to Ubud that afternoon, and I told my girlfriend, who's a young American girl, she was a bossy little, she was like a cricket. She jumped around all over the place all the time and very bossy. And she said to me, oh, okay, well, if you can ride a bike, we're going to go and hire one now. And I said, no. She said, oh, yes, we are. And so she dragged me to this shop where you rent bikes and said, come on, let's go. And she pushed me on it. Get on it. We're going to Kuta now. Like, I went, what? She said, no, we're going. So she pushed me on there and she got on the back and said, let's go. So we got to Kuta. I don't know how.
That from Ubud down to Kuta?
Yes, we drove.
I have to ask, do you remember how long that took? Is it like 45 minutes?
Probably an hour. But in those days, like the trees were growing on either side of the road, like huge trees, and there was these big spider webs that used to spread right across the top of the trees on both sides. Like it just spread right across the road, like these huge spider webs, and they'd catch birds, these spiders, like they were huge spiders. And so yeah, she got down there. We went to a disco, and then it was pouring rain, like torrential rain, and she brought her girlfriend. So then we had 3 on the bike driving through like a metre of water, and me screaming and them all screaming, and me thinking, oh, well, if we fall off, at least we just fall in the water, But we didn't fall off. We made it to the pizza joint after the Goa disco, and it was great. It was great fun, and I learned how to be a really good driver or rider, and I think my dad used to ride bikes and my grandfather, so I think it might be a bit of inherent memory there, because I ended up being a very good rider, and I rode bikes for 25 years over there. Never had an accident.
Never. So have you always been up in Ubud?
Yes. Yeah.
And why did you choose Ubud as a destination?
Well, that's because I met my little husband there. That girl that was on the plane said, come to Ubud. So when I went to Ubud, they had a great pub, like a little pub. Wasn't a pub, it was a really lovely little bar called Puri's, which was right next to was owned by the king, and it was really sleazy and dark, and it was great. I loved it. I loved that little sleazy little pub,
Is it still there?
No, it's gone now. I mean, all those good little places are gone. And it was just a dirt road those days, and there was no lights on the road, and there was just dogs everywhere. They'd have meetings on the corner. I used to think they're having a bunjar meeting, because there'd be 100 dogs all sitting around, and there'd be one dog up on the top talking, and they'd all be looking at him. And I thought, these dogs, they know all about the culture and everything. Like, they seem to be mirroring the culture. But yeah. So what was I saying about Ubud? The reason because that's where I met. I went to Ubud, like this girl said. I found this jazz bar as well up the steps near the Champlain River, where a bloke called Victor used to run a jazz club there, and he was married to a Balinese girl called in the top of my head. Anyway, I met this young fella, and I ended up marrying him, and he was his cousin Jesse that was married to Victor, and Victor was a shocking alcoholic, and we used to have this game where you had to get the ring on the horn. You'd have to stand there with this ring on a rope and swing it, and I had to get onto this horn, have to get on the horn on the wall, and if it didn't make it, then he had to drop his pants. So and he'd always be dropping his pants, and the Balinese boys used to think it was bloody hilarious. Like, they'd be falling all over the place and laughing and pointing at him, and because he was walking around with bollocks all the time. Like, and he was supposed to be one of these Englishmen. He was just terribly drunk all the time.
That's
in charge of the Hash Harriers or something. So the Hash Harriers, I don't know what it's an aid of, but they go running every Saturday around all these back roads, and they come back and then get absolutely plastered after
Yeah,
been
it's still
running.
it's still a thing, the hash harrows. It's still a thing there. It's crazy how when I first lived there back in 2005, I did a hash once. Then it was crazy. Right, so Linda,
did you meet Victor?
No,
I
don't know.
Still there, he would have still been there. Naughty Nuri's.
I can't remember, to be honest with you. It was a long time.
They had the best martinis at Naughty Nuri's. Oh my God, they were best martinis.
So, all right. So your relationship with Bali is quite a long one, and you've been there for 25 years since you actually moved there properly. So tell me about the foundation bark. Take me through the history of that. What led you to wanting to create a foundation about?
Well, I didn't want to create anything really. I mean, I had this little acupuncture clinic, and then the bomb went off. You know, the bomb I think it was 2002, I think it was. Anyway, it was just horrendous. Like, I mean, I divorced my Balinese husband by that time, and he wanted to live in Australia, so I went back to Bali, and he stayed in Australia. So we swapped sort of living geographics, and then I met this Javanese guy, and I thought, well, I don't know if I'll marry him, but anyway, I needed to be an Indonesian citizen to put needles through the skin, because nobody can come into Indonesia and inject anything. Like, you can't do any dog work, you can't do anything. So you have to become an Indonesian citizen. So I got married to this Indonesian guy, and I became a citizen and set up an acupuncture clinic. And the bomb went off, and there was nobody to do acupuncture on anymore. So I was painting, and this girlfriend of mine, Cecily, I'd been painting. I was really depressed. I had all my paintings in my clinic, and she came up and she says, "Come on, put your paintings in my gallery, cafe down in Kudo." And I can't be bothered. I'm too depressed. I don't want to do anything. And she said, "Come on." And she took she said, "Well, I'll do it." So she took all my paintings and put them down in this gallery cafe that she had. And we sold $8,000 worth, right?
Wow.
And I couldn't believe it. So I thought, oh, well, and I'd been picking dogs up, like little puppies, because people were throwing little dogs on the road and they had no hair, or they were just like 2 months old and just left there. And I couldn't look at one of those dogs and drive past them, So I had a backpack, and I would just pick them up, put them in my backpack and go home. One dog that I picked up, her name was Wang. She was my first dog. She was outside Casaluna on the main road in Ubud, and that they're well off. That cafe is really well off, and there's so many tourists going there that were well off as well, and they would just walk away around that poor little thing. She was just an absolute walking bag of bones, and her skin was shiny. There was no hair on her. She was shiny, and she looked like it was leather. And I thought, I've got to take her home. So I got a blanket and picked her up and took her home and gave her love for a couple of weeks. But she died because she was just so emaciated, and But after that, I couldn't drive past. I couldn't drive past a suffering animal, and after a while I had hardly any money. Like I had what I'd sold, my paintings, and I had probably another $13,000 in the bank, but that was all I had to live on. But I was getting supported also by the 12-step program. People in the 12-step program, they were just wonderful. Don't leave, stay, and we'll help you get some furniture and all this sort of stuff. So I had about 10 dogs after a while, pretty quickly, and then I thought, oh God, I'm going to have to find a place for them. So there was a little gallery on the outside of Ubud. It was a big hill, and it was going through the back part of Lok Tundu. And I thought, oh, I wonder how much they want. So they wanted how much they want? They wanted $1,200 for a year, and I thought, well, I can manage that. So I got this little gallery, and it had the roofs were leaking and everything, but it had a couple of big areas there that I could turn into kennels and stuff. So I didn't realise that I would have such a huge problem though, because in Bali there were all these viruses. You know, there's parvovirus and distemper and mononucleosis, and I mean there was just and hepatitis and all sorts of viral coughs, and then there was blood parasite, Babesia and Aloysia, and all this. And one of the vets that I'd been talking to, well, there was only one decent vet in the whole island, and I've been talking to her, and she said to me, "Don't be stupid, you know." She said, "Just do not do what you're thinking of doing, Linda." She said, "It's going to cost you a fortune." She said, "We've just had to put 20 dogs down because of the blood parasite disease. And I know you can treat blood parasite with a specific antibiotic, so doxycycline." So I didn't know then, but I know now. I mean, I knew about a year after doing all that. So after a while, I mean, I ended up with bloody 50 dogs in this little place. And every time I sold a painting or made a little bit of money, you know, I'd make another kennel, and I had to work out how to isolate the dogs. As soon as they came in, they had to be isolated. And then I had to find vaccines, and I had to import them from Australia because nobody had heard of vaccines. They just weren't heard of. And it was a big, I mean, what an adventure. I mean, and so many obstacles, you know, because you weren't allowed to bring medications in from Australia. So, you know, we had to, you know what, but miracles happened. These little miracles happened. And one of them was, I was at this place and it was all mud out the front. And, the day before this miracle happened, there was another little miracle happened. So I was sitting inside and I was crying because I thought, my God, I just can't do this. And I don't have the money, and there's nothing coming in, and, you know, how am I going to survive? Anyway, I had this little dog who had been walking on her hind legs near Denpasar, which I'd saved, and she couldn't walk on her front legs, just on her back legs, because she'd been in a horrible accident. And Nellie, enough of that. Come on, go to bed. I've got one dog here. I'm just telling her to go to bed. She's a red heeler and she doesn't want to listen to me. Anyway, we called her Kanga, and she was feeding puppies and everything, and she was walking on her hind legs. Anyway, I had this very strong connection with her, and I had 20 other dogs, and I was sitting there crying, and I thought, I can't do this. I've got to give it up. You know, I can't sustain this. Anyway, she came over to me. The other puppies just playing and carrying on. Well, she noticed me though, and she came over to me, and she put her little paws on my knees, and she looked right in my face, you know, and I could hear her say, "You made a difference to me, Mama." And I thought, oh my God. And I didn't have enough money to pay the security because we had to have somebody to watch the place at night time. And I had to take one of the dogs to the vet. So I had like my last 50 cents or something. Nellie, go to bed. So I had my last 50 cents. And so I took this dog down the vet. And when I came back, my staff, one of my boys was standing out the front with a fistful of money. And I said, "Oh my God, where'd you get that from?" He said, "Oh, somebody came past and gave me $2 million, which is $200. And I said, "That's how much we needed to pay the security." And he said, "Yeah." I said, "Go and pay them." Fantastic. So that was the first little miracle. And then the next day, like this car pulls up and there's mud everywhere. And I've got this dog out the front called Bruno, and he used to bite everybody. You know, I was having him on chain at the front. But he'd got off the chain, see, this day. And this car pulled up, and this guy gets out, and this beautiful woman comes out, and she's like about 27 years old. And she's covered in silks, beautiful flowing silks, you know. And she comes out and she's walking through this mud, and she's talking to her husband. Then she sees Bruno, the dog. And I went, oh my God, please don't touch him, don't touch him. I'm thinking to myself, don't. She goes up to him and she puts her hands on his head, and he looks up at her and he starts wagging his tail. And he's looking at her with this adoration in his face. I've never seen anything like it. And then he says to me, "My name's Muhammad and I'm a sheikh." Well, I get so nervous, I start talking bullshit, you know, like I start It's like verbal diarrhea. Oh, you're a shaker. Do you wear that white thing on your head and everything? And how many wives you got? And all this. And he's nodding and he's speaking in, perfect bloody American.
Yeah.
Anyway, and then I think she must have said to him in Arabic, like, you have to do something for this girl. And then he's going, okay. And then I sort of thought, oh, she must be his 10th wife or something. And he must have just got married to her. And this must be the honeymoon. I made this whole story up in my own head and everything. And then he says, what do you need? And I said, well, we need an ambulance, and we need medications. And he said, right. He said, and the day before, a couple of weeks before, I'd made a check for $100,000 and put it on the, to manifest $100,000 for this year for the dogs, Anyway, and he says, oh, well, we'll get you an ambulance. And I said, okay, well, I'll look around for an old combi van or something. He said, oh, no. He said, we'll have it made for you. I went, what?
Wow.
He said, we'll have a bus made in Jakarta for you, and we'll have a generator put in it, and we'll have an ambulance in the back and a table so that you can do operations and everything. And I couldn't believe it. And it was going to cost like $35,000 or something. I was just about to drop dead. And then he said, what else do you need? I said, well, we need medications. He said, that's about $5,000 a month. I said, yeah. He said, right, well, we'll have that sent over to you too for the next 6 months or something. And that would have made up $100,000, right?
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah. Well, the medication didn't. One lot came, but the next lot didn't because it was open through customs and there was all this, stuff going on. So, and I knew if they opened it, they were going to ruin the vaccines anyway because they're so hot and they need to be in ice. And anyway, so we only got one lot, but we did end up getting the bus and the ambulance,
Have you still got it today, the bus?
No, it fell apart. It wasn't really made very well, but it was brand new. It was supposed to be brand new, but they used not very good parts underneath it and so on. And then one of our drivers drove it off the road, and then things started falling apart, and then we didn't have the money to fix it. And, anyway, so we ended up selling it for, I don't know, $2,000 or something. So when you you've got all this starting, are you a foundation yet, or you haven't started that yet? Is that sort of still coming? When did you decide to become? Well, when the bus came, we'd already become a foundation. But before that, I had to go to a lawyer, which I found a very lovely lawyer, Ibu List, down in near Kuta, and she's just a wonderful human being, and she just did all this for us almost for nothing. And she set up the Yayasan for us, which is it's a foundation, which is like a charity over there. It's called a Yayasan. So we had to have so many Indonesians on it. So we've got about 6 people on the Yayasan.
On like the board of directors type thing?
On the upper?
On the board? Like the board of directors of the Yayasan?
You just have so many people that do particular things, like a secretary and a chairperson.
Yeah. And so then that Yayasan allows you to then purchase property, and then you can create this Bark Foundation properly as a permanent establishment in the Ubud community. Yeah.
Well, I got some land for myself in Ubud, but I contracted it a long, long time ago. I've got another 5 years left on it, which will be up to 30 years. And that is now the headquarters for Bark. But it's also got some bedrooms there. So we have just launched a volunteer program in UK, and so we've got 3 bedrooms, and we've got another bedroom which should probably have bunks in it, so people that want to volunteer for Bark can come over and stay in the house. And
I saw that on your website. What's a volunteer do? Because I saw they pay, which goes towards the upkeep of the animals, but so what would a volunteer be actually doing?
Oh, they come and they probably work 3 days on the sanctuary, which is about an hour out of Ubud. So they go by car or motorbike up to the sanctuary. And in those days, they're bathing dogs and talking to dogs and helping clean and cut grass and do all the menial things that my staff hate doing. But people seem to love doing it. So it's great. And then, and clean up your own mess and paint walls and, just clean toilets, anything that needs to be done. But basically those dogs really need a lot of love. So it's great to have people up there that from our countries, you know, that love dogs coming for them and being there with them.
How many dogs have you got at the moment?
100 plus we've got still.
100 dogs?
Yeah, yeah.
And who cleans up the poo?
My staff do. We got a big hole, and I have to tell them to learn. That's another thing, you know, like I don't know what the name of it is, but there's some sort of powder you can get that helps it break down.
Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm constantly trying to make things better, but yeah, it's a hard job.
Apart from money and the constant need to try and finance and find the funds, what's some of the biggest challenges that you face, I guess, in that overdevelopment of what Uber's become, or even just since you've started? What's as a liaison? I mean, you started with
you know, when I first started, like I would almost like have the dog sleeping in the bed with me. Like I had 20 dogs at my house, and there was nothing next to me. You know, like when I got this land in Albert, there was no building next to me on either side. There was a river behind me and like a big forest, which is still there. So it's a beautiful spot. But people started building around me, and I had 20 dogs, and then suddenly I was the enemy, you know, like they wanted me out of there, and they wanted the dogs out of there because I was disturbing their visitors or whoever, because suddenly there was you know, they'd built a place next to me with a swimming pool, and all these upmarket tourists were staying there. So they came and monstered me and brought the police and all sorts of stuff and said, well, you know, you don't respect our laws and our customs, so you need to go. And I went, what? And they said, well, get rid of the dogs. So there's a law now where I'm only allowed to have 4 dogs at the headquarters in Ubud. And that means that dogs that really need help, like a dog that's got 2 legs missing or 2 eyes missing, have to be up on the bloody sanctuary, which really upsets me. You know, like I don't have money to have another place. It's just, we're stuck. You know, we're stuck with having to send dogs that really need to be one-on-one loved up to the sanctuary with, you know, 6 staff and 100 plus dogs. And so they're not going to get their one-on-one, you know, treatment, which I'd love to give them. So we're only allowed to have 4 dogs at the so that's one of the challenges. So one of the challenges was that, you know, things changed and the dogs suffer for it. You know, they've had to suffer by going up to the sanctuary and not being with me one-on-one.
So when you say it's a law now, did they go and change like a local banja law or something to create that you can only?
Well, I think in the old days it was all fine. You know, you could have as many dogs as you liked and so on. But when they started bringing, you know, building homestays and stuff like that around you, I don't know if they changed the law. I think they made a specific law for me. I think they had this meeting and I got called in, you know, to the big offices in Ubud with the royal family and the police and the Banjar and everything, and, you know, to answer the, you know, the accusations of disturbing the neighborhood. And of course, you know, one learns to be humble in that circumstance, because had I had the attitude like I used to have in Australia, which was F you and piss off and don't hassle me, I would have been thrown out of the country probably. So what I said was, you're right, and my attitude does stink, and I really appreciate that we're allowed to have 4 dogs, and thank you. So therefore, actually, you know, when I walked out, they lowered that. They had an understanding, and they came up to me and they said, Ibu Linda, we'd like to thank you for taking care of our Bali dogs, which I thought was just lovely. Even though I'm only allowed to have 4 dogs there, it was just lovely to be appreciated, you know, by the authorities.
Now, it seems like, so I live down in Legian and I'm always out and about walking around Kuta. And I've noticed this time there seems to be a real, I guess, excluding along Kuta Beach, but it seems like there's less dogs around. You used to see a lot more dogs, and there was always this irrational fear that the dogs in Bali have rabies, and if they bite you, you know, you're going to die, all these types of things. But it seems like has there been an eradication program or like a culling of sorts throughout that area?
But there's a constant culling. There's a constant culling. Yes.
And is it legal or is it
Well,
not legal?
it's if the Balinese are doing it's legal. You know.
Is it
It's
humane?
legal. I can't. No, it's not humane. No, not at all. And I can tell you some horror stories, but you don't want to hear them. But one horror story was that a girlfriend of mine called me and said in her village that there's a whole lot of cages piled on top of each other with dogs in it, and they're all chained inside the cages, and they've been there for 3 days. And there was a bloke, there was about 100 dogs, and there was a bloke that was going to take them to Java and eat them. So he was going to sell them in Java. So when I went up the mountain and I found these dogs and with my staff, and I tried to contact the person who claimed they were his dogs. He was going to houses and saying, "Do you want this dog? I'll give you something for it." You know, so he'd give them a basket or a little basket or a little, you know, something, little gift, and then they'd go, "Oh, take it," you know, because they treat them like chooks. This is 20 years ago. And anyway, so I said to my staff, okay, just get the pliers and we'd bust them all out. So we busted them all out, and we couldn't find their homes for them. We just had to let them go, you know.
Yeah.
So some of them had one eye, and the poor things. I mean, and they were starving, you know. Anyway, I was just wrapped that they just took off down the bush, you know. They all took off, and I thought, oh, they'll find their ways home. But because they're Bali dogs and they can survive, you know, they survive anything, Bali dogs.
Yeah.
Anyway, this guy who was collecting these dogs came to my house and said he was going to kill me or whatever, you know. How dare you you owe me, you know, thousands of dollars. And I said, oh, if you know, don't tell me what to do, and you can just go and jump in the lake, mate. You know, you're talking to a brick wall. You know, how dare you eat dogs and all this stuff. Anyway, he left, and then this friend of mine who was a student lawyer who was right behind me with all this. He called me a couple of days later and said, Linda. And I said, yeah. He goes, guess what? I said, what? He goes, that guy who threatened your life, he said, he's dead. I said, what? He said, yeah, he electrocuted himself by mistake.
Oh, Jesus.
And so then everybody started thinking I was a witch, which I thought was fantastic. Like, I'm the witch, a Balinese witch, you know. So it was great, because I said to this other person, like a Balinese guy, I said, I think that person next door is putting poison in my water tank. I've been vomiting lately. And he said to me, Linda, he said, no one's got the balls to even come near you. He said, there's no way anyone's going to try and hurt you. And I love it, you know. It was great. It was really good.
I just picture you walking down the street with some dogs and they all cross the road because they say, here's the witch coming up the road, the witch of Uberwood.
Oh, yeah. No, people have got that attitude with me, apparently. And there was, well, you know, I did work on that, because that same village, I found out they were going to poison the dogs the following week, and they were going to go through the village and poison them. So I got there that same day as my girlfriend was there, and we took a couple of staff up there to help. And I went up there and I saw these people coming down the road, and they threw a piece of poison to a little dog that had come out of one of the homes, a little puppy, and it took the poison and fell over and started frothing. And this mongrel came up and started beating it with a stick. At the same time, this darling little thing is lying there, going through the throes of death, and, you know, and frothing at the mouth, and he's beating it. Well, I was about 50 yards away from him, so I ran toward him and his group, you know, and of course I was furious, and I was talking Balinese and Indonesian, and I said, you know, I said, you're all going to turn into dogs next life. And I said, and I'm going to make sure you all die, and you're going to have awful deaths and all this. I was so mad. And I had a stick, and this guy threatened me with his stick, and I threatened him back. And well, they all sat there with their eyes popping out of their head when I told them I've got black magic I'm going to put on them and all this. And they sat there and they their eyes were goggling me, and then they turned around. I said, throw the poison out. They threw all the poison out and they went home. So none of the dogs got poisoned in that village that week. But, did they go back following week? I don't know.
So I got to ask, and so what's it cost to look after more than 100 dogs a month up at the sanctuary?
I have to raise $5,000 a month.
Every month you have to.
Every month.
Where do you find that $5,000?
Well, I try and do a My Cause, and look, the My Cause, nothing's coming in at the moment. And
sorry, the what?
I try and do a crowdfunder, but I've sort of given that up now. So because, there's so many stories. There's so many weirdos that go to Bali, animal people, and a lot of them are quite weird. But, I was traumatized about 2 years ago. I mean, I was traumatized all the time by the things I saw on the street and the abuse of animals and, the culling and the eating of them and everything. But I was traumatized in another way by this couple of women that were sending me death threats and all sorts of stuff. And I just got to the stage where I couldn't cope anymore, which was really it's not like my character to be like that, but I think I'd just gone through so much over so many years, and I came back to Australia, and these people started writing letters because I had a Australian charity as well, and they started writing letters, and they got all these people to write letters to the charities here, and they took our that tax deductible thing off us.
Mm-hmm.
And so then My Cause said, well, if you're not got tax deductibility, we can't advertise you as a charity anymore. And I was just devastated. But anyway, so that money that I normally would have been able to raise, which would have been $2,000 a month from the crowdfunder, just stopped. And so I've been struggling. We're not funded anywhere, but we do have people that will sponsor a dog, per month. And because I've launched the volunteer program, I'm hoping that will help. And I've also started, I've just fixed up one area on our land, because we've got a hectare of land for the dogs there. I've fixed up one area for boarding, so we'll be able to board dogs for maybe $200 a month, and that will help, So I've had to find other ways of funding, and because the land's so big, so if a fence falls down, well, that's $1,000. The other day I had to spend $1,000 on having 2 trees chopped down. Every month there's always something and vet bills are huge. And now our doggies are getting old, because a lot of them, have been with us for 9-10 years. And so dogs in Bali don't live that long, but they get to old age, and you've got to treat them every week, for something. Or one of them is going to end up in the vet for sure. So we've always got vet bills. And anyway, you don't want to hear all that, but you'd rather hear funny.
Tell me about the I saw on your website, which I'll put up on the screen for everyone later, and everyone that's watching on TikTok, people are asking what the website is. I'll put that up as well. I saw on there. So tell me more about the virtual adoption. What does that look like? What's that cost? I mean, we've got some people watching, so may as well tell them about it, because some people are interested. We're going to look at doing some stuff and bringing people up to visit the location. But tell us about the virtual adoption. What's that?
Well, on the website, I think I can't remember very well, because I'm not a bloody web person, but I think we offer like $20, $30, $40, $50 a month. So it's up to you to choose one of the doggies. And we just had a lady over, Jane, who virtually adopted Rocco. And Rocco is an older dog, and he's had his eye protruded out of his face for some reason. We had no idea, but we actually had to remove the eye recently. And she was there, which was great. So she was able to go. She was only over a holiday for 2 weeks, but she went to the vet every day and talked to him and sang songs to him and bought him little treats and so on, which was so lovely to have the sponsor there. So all year she probably didn't see him, but she came for the 2 weeks and she was with him. So if people want to adopt one of our dogs, our virtual dogs, so they just pay some money for things that they might need, you know, like food, but also, you know, if there's any vet bills or anything like that, they can help with that if they want to, you know. I mean, we have to pay for it anyway, whether people help us or not, but it's lovely when people do help, and then they can come over and visit him or her and hang out with them as well, you know. But we just lost 2 dogs today, you know, little Leela, who I had from a puppy, and I don't know what happened. I think and Andy, and he was probably 9 years old, and Leela's probably 9 too, you know, and she was getting really skinny, and apparently they both had liver and kidney failure. And I mean, she just died yesterday, and I've been in tears all day. But yeah, sorry.
No, you're right.
It's just hard losing them. Anyway.
So that virtual adoption, no, you're fine. You're fine. That virtual adoption thing is something that I think some of the people that are watching here now would look into. So I think that's a really great initiative that you're developing there. And the challenges you must face, from what you've shared, is extremely, I guess, almost impossible to navigate. So the way you're doing them, and you continue to fight the fight, it's just so admirable. Tell me about the education programs that you have that I noticed on your website.
Look, we used to do sterilisation programs, education programs. We had a clinic, we had a shop, we had all those things. But when COVID happened, and a couple of other ingredients which were detrimental to us, all of that had to stop. So as much, we have schools that come and visit us, and we take them around the dogs and teach them, but we don't go to schools anymore because we don't have enough staff to do that anymore. We've probably only got 8 staff now, and people some people look at us and think, oh, they're huge. Well, actually not a huge charity. It's just me and trying to negotiate, you know, everything and work everything out, and trying to keep good staff on, and just, I don't know, it's just, the best we can do now is look after the 100 dogs that we have, and do some street feeding and some street medications for dogs with skin problems. And that's the best we can actually do now. And I feel that for 25 years I've done this. I'm now 73, and on the way out, you know, at the end of the bloody freeway, if you want to put it that way. Well, I'm in the waiting room, but you know, so I've got to think about what's going to happen to the dogs if something happens to me, and who's going to take it over. Or
so what's your plan with that? What do you do with that?
Well, I had one girl that was interested in taking it over recently, but she didn't want to put any money in towards it. You know, she just wanted to take it, and that was it. But you know, I've been working at this for 25 years, so it's almost like, you know, well, I've got a house which is worth $200,000 probably in the town that needs. I'd have to get something into, you know, for my life and the work that I've done. Most people here would get what do you have? You have what do you have when you go to work for 30 years in Australia, and then you know, superannuation. Well, I don't have anything like that, you know, so I'd have to think of finding somebody who really, really loves dogs, who's got a little bit of money and wants to invest and make it better and build more. I mean, that land that we have the dogs on, you're allowed to build on it. So like, the one thing I'd love to do would be find someone who wants to put little huts all over the place. Then people could come and stay in the huts and hang out with the dogs, and, you know, pay a little bit of money to be there, and that would support us. You know, that would be fantastic, something like that. But, you know, I guess there's a lot of options to think about. But one thing I don't want is the dogs to suffer. I want them to have a good life. And You know, my mum was 98 when she died, and I'm 74. I probably got a few years left.
You got plenty of time. Don't need to stress about it just yet. I can see in the background these beautiful paintings. I know that you're an artist. Tell me about the art and what you do with the art. And
Right. Well, I've been painting since I was a kid. And I'm having a show in Albury on the openings on the 8th of August. So that's going to happen like within 2 weeks. I'm running around at the moment trying to get frames on everything, and I do abstract. I do dogs. Do you want to have a look? Can I show you a couple?
Yeah, let's go.
How do I do that? Do I
you just carry that and just walk around. Do what you need to do.
Walk around. Okay. Well, so this is an abstract here, a big blue one. Can you see that?
Yeah, I can. It's beautiful.
And what then above it, there's a sort of a. Can you see that?
Yeah, I can see that.
And then here's a sort of another abstract. Can you see that?
So you've painted all of these?
Yes, these are all my work. And then there's work all around the room here.
Wow.
So, and then there's that's our work I do in Bali, and this is work I've done in Bali as well. See that one?
Yeah.
So, getting frames on everything at the moment. So.
And what do you do with them? So you sell them?
Yeah. Look, I do sell them. Yes, I do. I probably get, I was in a big gallery in Melbourne, the Delshan Gallery in Toorak for a number of years, and she was selling my big works for about 5,000, which, of course, I've got friends now saying you should be charging more than that, but I'd like to knock the prices right down and get rid of all my work and then really start again.
So the money you sell, so when you sell a painting, do you put the money into the AEST?
Goes in the dog bank account. Yep.
Yeah. So what is the I guess the sanctuary or even the headquarters? What's something that you need at the moment that you haven't got that would make life easier there?
We need new staff. I need more staff. I need more people that we can work for us, and the wages for our staff, a good person to work for us is like $300-400 a month.
Mm-hmm.
It should be a bit more than that, but if they're just cutting grass or whatever up there and cleaning poo or whatever, we'd pay them like $3 million a month, which would be. But then there's insurance and everything on top of that. But we really do need to get. And we need paint. We need lots of paint because we've got to paint these walls out. What else do we need? Oh, so much. I mean, just there's so much we need. I don't know. Maybe what we could do is we need to improve the place. We need some windows put in, and we need another veranda made. We need a couple more great big dog beds made, which we're usually four-poster. They're not just small kennels, like we make them bigger so there's like 8 dogs can get in there together, and they don't get the rain on them or anything. They're sheltered. And usually they cost about, how much they cost? They cost about $2,000 to have one built each. Yeah. So a few of those about the place would be fantastic. But and then I guess what we need is to have a bank account that we can go, right, there's some money in the bank, we can get a new fence, or we can cut those trees down. We don't have to be freaking out every time we have to do something. So it's me really having a nervous breakdown constantly. There's not enough money. Like my staff just said to me today, we need $900 for the food, for the rice, for transporting the dogs. We actually need a car. That's what we need more than anything else, is a car so we can or a motorbike with a sidecar on it, like that we can we can put a sick dog in it and get it to the vet, because every time we have to call, you know, a taxi, a pet taxi, it costs us $70 to go from the sanctuary down to the vet and back, you know. So like we've have that 4 times this week. So how much is that? That's like $400 almost that we've had to pay, which comes out of their food money, you know. It's just
So what's it cost to feed a dog per month? 1 dog per month. How much is that to feed him or her?
$200. $200 for a month. Yep.
That's a healthy diet.
That's rice, chicken, pumpkin, moringa, coconut oil every day. Yeah. And normally it'll be medication as well, you know.
Yeah. I'll just put out to the people on TikTok live that are watching, if you've got any questions for Linda, chuck them in the chat now, and we can put them to her. I'll just have a look and see just here. So there's nothing there on that's right. So if you've got any questions, feel free to put it in. We've got 10 minutes left with Linda, and I will ask directly to it. Would you be, when are you back to Bali? You said you got back for an operation. When are you back in Bali?
Oh, look, this operation is probably my knee replacement, and it's probably going to be 6 weeks at least before I can get on a plane and get back there.
So I'm back in Bali tomorrow night. So Tuesday, sort of back on the ground working, doing the things that I do. If I put together a tour, somebody's put on here a tour up to come and check out the sanctuary and stuff. And we have a social club as part of this community that we're now building. If I put together something to come up, and I'll charge everyone a little fee, and we'll donate that fee to that. Is that something that we could look at doing?
That'd be great. You know what, the other thing is that the house that I've got the 4 dogs in, it's got 3 bedrooms empty, and it's been sitting there for ages. I just haven't worked out how to get anyone to stay there. So if anybody wants to stay in the house, like for a month or whatever, and hang out with the dogs and just pay a minimal like rent, that would be great as well, as long as they don't smoke and drink alcohol, you know.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. That's something we can talk about, and I'm happy to push that out in the community that we're sort of developing. Okay. Yeah, so
fantastic.
So happy to help any way we can and sort of develop. I was thinking even like a monthly working bee type thing, and come up and and volunteer a day, hang out. They can cut grass, they can clean up, they can bring, they can donate some money towards the food or the housing. If people want to bring food, is that a possibility, or is it better to just give you the cash put into a bank account? Or
no, some people bring dry food, and then if they bring dry food, like it has to be good quality dry food, because some of that dry food apparently is really bad for their bladders, etc. So good quality dry food is great. Rice is fantastic because we use rice every day. We cook for them every day. Meat, chicken, all of that. It's great. It's really helpful to get like lots of food. So yeah, I mean, I just thought maybe the dogs, we've just put them on eggs for a week because I was worried that maybe Leela got some toxin or something from the chicken. I wasn't sure. So I said to them, well, you better stop the chicken and we'll just do eggs for a week just to make sure that the dogs are not getting any sort of toxin from the chicken that we've been buying. But I doubt that that's what's going on, because the doctor thinks it's probably babesia, like the blood parasites affecting them. So I think we need to get like lots of doxycycline. If people buy doxycycline and bring it over when they come, that'd be great as well.
Yeah. What's the relationship of the Balinese and dogs? Are they? I mean, foreigners and Aussies, I mean, our relationship with dogs, we see them as pets, as part of our family. Is that the same sort of view that the Balinese have?
Look, when I first went over there, I found a couple of old buggers that really loved their dogs, and I didn't expect that. But on the whole, they treated like chickens. Like they're just there. They can find their own food and they're part of the community, but they're just tolerated like chickens. But it is changing. There's a few Balinese people that absolutely love their dogs, and I'll tell you what, when they really love them, they have a level of communication that we don't have with our dogs, and they can get them to do anything. There's one guy who's got 5 dogs that sits on his bike every day and goes everywhere he goes. Those dogs go with him. Like he's got one on the handlebars, one between his legs, and then 3 sitting on the seats behind him. And they love him to death, like he just got whistles them and they're on the bike ready to go. And so dogs really, really, understand the Balinese owners when they're there and open with them. But then you've got other people that just treat them like dirt and eat them, because they'll bring their mates over and they'll drink alcohol and go, I'm really tough, I can kill my own dog. And they'll kill the dog and have it roasted over a bloody barbecue to show how tough they are. But I mean, that is phasing out, but it's still there. It still happens. And the other thing is, I was married to a Balinese man. His father, I questioned him when I was doing a documentary one day. I questioned him about why, because he was a priest. His father was a priest. And I said to him, why do you kill an animal to make the house safe? It's a housewarming ritual, kill the dog and put it on a cross like Jesus on a cross and sacrifice it. And I said, what do you do that for? And he said, well, it's in the book. I said, what book? He said, well, we've got a book of rules that keep the bad spirits out of the house. And I said, but did you ever think that God might have made the dog so the dog can have his road in life and his karma, without you interfering with it, like without you, you're just interfering with this dog's karma. What makes you think that God can't take the dog himself if he wants the dog? But there was no answer to that, It was just like, I've got the book, and this is a book of rules. As a priest, I'm a priest. This is a book of rules, and this is what I do it by.
Balinese culture is so intricate and complex, isn't it? I've started sharing little bits and pieces on my TikTok channel, and I find it really interesting. It sort of doesn't get as many views as like, this is the best cafe to go to for your coffee, but it's slowly getting better and better, and people that are interested in Bali, really enjoy it. I'm really looking forward to coming up and checking out the sanctuary and checking out HQ and really sort of maybe pushing this. I mean, there's so many different charities in Bali, and dogs, everyone seems to love Bali dogs. There's just something about them.
Well, Bali, they're special, but they're destroying that's the other thing, bringing all these Western dogs into Bali. There's a woman there that's breeding, what is it? What do they call them? Poodles or
Poodles. The cavoodles and that, the little toy.
Well, but the thing is that when she sells them for a lot of money, and she doesn't sterilize them. And, I found them tied up in garages and emaciated and so on. And I'm against anybody breeding animals over there. But the Balinese also have that wonderful, magical Hindu story about, was it Shiva? Going into, I don't know, I haven't, but it's about a dog, and about the dog was a companion of this god, and he disguised himself. And they said that when he was going to enter the kingdom of heaven or something, the guards on the gate said, no, you can come, but the dog can't. He said, well, if I can't bring the dog, he's my companion, then I'm not coming into heaven or paradise or whatever. I can't remember the story, but there's definitely a lot of respect for dogs in the past. The dogs were very important. And the Bali dog is one of the breeds that had their DNA hadn't been touched for 16,000 ever, But now that they bring Western dogs in, they're just destroying the strain. But those Bali dogs are so clever. They climb trees. They sit on top of roofs. They're in charge of the world. They've got this amazing, pride, and smartness. They're clever, and they're highly intelligent, highly intuitive, and so loyal, But they've also got that dingo in them and said, oh, I say, come here, Toby, whatever. I'm not coming there now. I'm busy. I'm doing something else, But so I've got 4 dogs at my house that I absolutely adore, and they're Bali. One's Bali dog, and he's got an attitude. If you go in there and try and pat him, it's like, just stay away. I'll talk to you if I feel like it. If you want to give me a nice little treat, I'll eat it, but don't ever try and touch me without me, giving you the consent first. Yeah. They're pretty special.
Okay, so just before we finish up, I mean, you see the dogs down by the beach all the time. Are the dogs dangerous? Are they safe? They're,
They're not dangerous.
they're not dangerous. And do they have rabies? Is that really a thing?
No, they don't have rabies. I mean, that's the thing. I got there and there was no dogs that had any rabies. And that's another sad thing, because that rabies came from people sneaking Western dogs in from Java, you know. And yet the Balinese dog are the ones that have been blamed for it and attacked and poisoned and culled and abused and beaten and stabbed through the heart. You know, they're the dogs, they're the poor things that have copped it. But no, and there's another ridiculous law that says you're not allowed to take a Bali dog out of the country, which I wish the hell they'd changed that, because if they've already been vaccinated against rabies, then there's no problem, you know. And I haven't heard of any rabid dogs for quite a while now. And if the dog did have rabies, it'd be throwing its head around and spluttering, wouldn't know where it was, and you know, it'd be salivating and, you know, standing there and screaming. You know, you can tell a dog that's got rabies. It's standing right in front of you. It's crazy. It's crazy because it's affected its brain, you know.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Thank you so much for your time and sharing your story with us. I believe I could sit for 2 hours talking to you. And that hour's just absolutely flown by. And I mean, let's work out something and actually do something. And I think it's a great idea. The initiative that you're doing is fantastic. And there are so many people that I see and I meet daily in Bali that are interested in the dogs. So I think just getting the awareness out there that there is a foundation, a non-profit like yours, Bark, to help the dogs. It's going to generate interest, and who knows, we might be able to develop something out of it and together a monthly, you know, come and visit, and we'll do something where people can come and donate. So allow me to have a little think about it and work something out, and we'll sort of maybe we'll connect when you get back to Bali, and we'll, you know, I'll come up and I'll go up beforehand, but when you get back we'll connect and do something and work out some planning and sort of go from there. But thank you so much for your time and sharing your story. I've really loved talking to you. Everyone on TikTok, thank you so much for tuning in. And as you do each time I post a video, you guys are absolutely amazing, and you guys are supporting this journey as well. If you can, what's the website for it?
It's Bark, BARC, and then a number 4, and then balidogs.org.au.
Okay, perfect. And if they just put into Google BARC Bali, that'll come up straight away.
BARC and a number 4, I think, is probably best. Yeah.
Okay, brilliant, fantastic. All right, we'll leave it there.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Linda. Thank you, everyone on TikTok. I will be back in Bali tomorrow on Tuesday. Be back to normal stuff. And what do we say? I'll see you soon.
Au revoir. Terima kasih. Sampai jumpa.
Sampai jumpa and all the rest of it.
Sampai jumpa. Yeah.
Just ending that now. 1 second. End stream. End stream. And